Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
First, a word from our sponsor. The Daily Compliance News for March 29, 2021, the More Likely Than Not edition. And we begin with that lead story from the Wall Street Journal, where a federal judge has ruled that a law professor who advised then-President Donald Trump and President Trump while he was sitting as president are more likely than not committed felonies in their insurrection attempts to overthrow the government on January 6th and around their efforts to stop the certification of that same date. The judge's ruling came on a narrow question of legal privileges over production of documents, saying that a crime was likely committed. Therefore, the crime fraud exception to the attorney-client privilege allowed discovery of the documents. So for the first time, we now have a federal judge on record saying that President Trump, more likely than not, engaged in felony conduct. Now the question is, what, if anything, will happen? Next up from Reuters, Barclays, who can't seem to get out of its way and is yet facing more scrutiny in the form of a £450 million, that's $592 million fine for those keeping score at home, for exceeding a U.S. limit on sales of structured products, some of which have surged in popularity since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Barclays said on Monday that it will have to delay a planned £1 billion buyback as a result of the loss. No doubt the buyback was simply there to benefit executives. Shares in Barclays were down 4%, and this major regulatory blunder is an early embarrassment for the newly appointed chief executive of Barclays, whose name I won't even try to pronounce, but he replaced the prior corrupt CEO, Jes Staley. Next up from the Jerusalem Post, corruption continues to play a part in the Russian invasion of Ukraine, as now it is hindering Russia's attempt to replace losses with old vehicles. Mothballed Russian military equipment is being taken out of long-term storage, but stolen and missing parts are preventing the replenishment of vehicles and preventing the replacement of losses. The corruption of the Russian military is an open secret and open sore for the Russian military, as it has really taken away their ability to effectively wage war. And finally, it appears that Disney employees now speak for the company, at least with the Florida Don't Say Gay law, as they have said that they want it overturned on a legal finding. And it's interesting that Disney employees are leading the Disney company's efforts on this entire matter. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.